Welcome to our Alumni Talks webinar that will give you first-hand information on University of Toronto Rotman School of Management MBA experience. My name is Mila, and I am the moderator of this webinar on behalf of Unimy. Please welcome our panelist, Richard Feliciano, Admissions and Recruitment Assistant Director, who will be shortly be joined by two of Rotman's students. And they will be telling us about the educational journey and how acquiring a degree from the #1 MBA program in Canada has enhanced their careers. You will be able to send your questions throughout the entire webinar by typing them in the chat box. And our panelists,
by giving you a bit of a presentation on the overview of the full-time MBA program here at Rotman. Because really an MBA is going to be one of the biggest decisions you make in your life. It's a big personal, financial decision. So it's really important that you find a program that really meets your goals, both personally and of course professionally. So what I'm going to do in this presentation is just give you kind of go over what really makes our program unique, and hopefully by the end of the presentation you'll have a better sense of why the Rotman MBA might be a good fit for you. And then just once I'm done with the presentation, I'll be joined by two of our current second-year students, Juliana and Wale, and they'll be happy to answer your questions, and there will be a panel discussion as well. So look forward to that. All right, so with that, we will get started on the presentation here. So you'll see here the slide. Here I am. So the first thing to kind of think about the Rotman MBA, and one of the things that really makes us unique, is of course our location. So we're located in the heart of downtown Toronto. For those of you who have never had the opportunity to travel to Toronto, it's a very big city. It's a very vibrant city. One of the largest cities in North America. It's the second largest financial sector in North America behind New York City. It is the economic engine of Canada. The Greater Toronto area represents close to 40% of Canada's entire GDP. And aside from that, you have great economic opportunity, but at the same time, it's consistently ranked as one of the best places to live and work in the world. You have a very high quality of life. It's a very safe city. Very vibrant city. There's a lot of great parks where, if you want to get away from the intense concrete jungle of the financial sector, you have beautiful parks that make you feel like you're in a forest in the countryside, just about 10-15 minutes away from the downtown core. And then aside from that, one thing that really makes Toronto unique is it's considered to be the most multicultural city in the world. So 52% of Toronto's entire population is born outside of Canada. And that's important because many of you are probably international students tuning in today. And that's you're coming to a place that's extremely welcoming, and one that you can feel at home very quickly. And I think that's definitely one of something you'll hear from Juliana and Wale. Coming to Toronto, it's definitely a very welcoming place, and one where it's very normal not to be from Toronto or Canada, in Toronto, in that sense. So just moving along here, just to kind of show you where exactly we are located. So you'll see here, Rotman School of Management, that's us here at 105 St. George Street. Right across the street, you have Robarts Library, one of the largest libraries in the world. And the University of Toronto library system is actually second largest in the world to Harvard University in the United States. You see here that you have the Art Gallery of Ontario, a huge cultural hub in the city. We're only about a 10 to 20 minute walk downtown. You have Queen's Park, the head of the Ontario government, which Toronto is the capital of Ontario, just a few minutes from campus as well. And then I'm going to focus a little bit here on Bay Street. And Bay Street is kind of like the main hub of offices in Toronto, kind of like Toronto's Wall Street for comparison in New York City. And this is essentially where you have a lot of multinational companies, a lot of national companies that have their headquarters. And you see here that we're only just a few minutes away. So this is a huge advantage to our students because it gives you the opportunity to, of course, meet employers on campus, face to face with the recruitment opportunities. But you can really take the initiative to target maybe a handful of companies that you really want to work for and really focus on developing that relationship. You can meet recruiters more often, you can meet alumni more often for coffee chats, and those are some of the things that can really go a long way when it comes to landing that coveted internship opportunity or full-time employment opportunity that you're aiming for after the MBA program. So just to zero in here, here you'll see a small sample list of some of the companies that hire our MBAs for their internship and full-time employment opportunities after the MBA program. You can download an employment and salary report directly on our website, which gives you a full breakdown of all the companies that hire and recruit at Rotman, including things like salaries and how students got their internships and employment opportunities. So that can be really helpful for you to see as well. But yeah, you'll see here lots of multinationals which are headquartered here in Toronto or have very large offices. So just to give you an example here of one of our alumni, you have Robin Ross. She came from Western Canada. She didn't have an established network in Toronto. It's probably similar to many of you who maybe don't have any previous connections to Canada or Toronto. And she's someone, you see her quote there, who really took advantage of our location, really focused on developing the relationships with a variety of different employers, and was able to land a coveted internship with Bain & Company. She went on to work with Bain for a few years as a management consultant, and then is currently working as the VP of Operations for Wealthsimple, which is one of Canada's most exciting new fintech companies. They're currently managing about $12 or $13 billion in assets, so a very large organization as well. So happy for her on this on that new opportunity. But again, it's like you see here that you don't need an established network in Toronto to be successful with your career opportunities, because you do have that location and the reputation of the school to really help leverage your networking opportunities. Then you have the University Health Network. So Toronto is also a huge healthcare hub. There's over $1.2 billion in biomedical research spent in the city every year. The University of Toronto also received its largest donation ever recently of $100 million to build a new AI and biomedical research center. This will only be a few steps away from Rotman, and they actually just broke ground on this project yesterday. So really excited to see this project progress and see the impact that it has on the University of Toronto community. Then you have the Mars Discovery District. So this is again just a few minutes away from Rotman's campus. This is the largest innovation hub in North America. You have over 1,200 startups located directly in here. You also have more established companies like Facebook and Instagram that have established international headquarters here in the building as well. Then you have Kesem Frank here. He graduated from our program in 2015. He came from Israel. So again, like many of you, didn't have an established network, didn't know anyone in Toronto. And he was someone who was able to leverage the network he created in the Creative Destruction Lab, the Mars Discovery District. I'll talk a little bit more of the Creative Destruction Lab later. And he was able to found his own company after the MBA program. He founded Nuco, a blockchain company, and they were able to raise about $27 million in equity. He's also recently founded a company called Aon, so we're really excited to see what he does with that. And he's also a perfect example of alumni who give back to Rotman, because last summer he hired 5 of our full-time MBA students for their internship opportunities. So again, it's coming to Toronto, you don't need an established network. Then you have Rodrigo Paolucci. He graduated from our program recently in 2019. Before that, he was from Brazil. Again, didn't know anyone in Toronto. You see here that he was previously the CRO of Sambatech, which is a major technology firm there in Brazil and Latin America, and he actually his employment should be updated here. He's taken on an exciting new role as a global marketing director for AB InBev, one of the largest beverage distributors in the world. So really excited to see Rodrigo take on that new opportunity. So now that I've talked a little bit about our location, I'm going to talk a little bit about our reputation. So the University of Toronto, it's consistently ranked as the top university in Canada, one of the top 25 universities in the world. It was actually recently ranked as number 18 on the Times Higher Education rankings and on the US News rankings globally. So top 20 university. It's typically ranked as the number 6 university outside of the United States. It's close to 200 years old. It's produced Nobel laureates, prime ministers. There's over $1.2 billion in research funding spent at the university every year. And there's close to 600,000 alumni from the University of Toronto globally. So you're joining a very large, well-known community. Now, being a top-ranked school and with a top global reputation, we're able to attract some incredible faculty to the school. So, of course, we've also been ranked as the #1 MBA program in Canada for quite a few years on the Financial Times rankings. And as a great example of some of our leading faculty, you have Sarah Kaplan here, she worked with McKinsey & Company in New York City for close to 20 years. Did her PhD at MIT, and she's one of our most beloved strategy management professors. And she's a great example of our faculty because she's, someone who worked within the industry for quite a few years and brings that to the classroom, and then is also doing some really incredible things on the academic side. She leads one of the many research institutes at Rotman, the Gender and the Economy Institute. And really excited to see some of the work that they've been doing. And that's a great opportunity for students at Rotman. They have lots of opportunities to connect with our faculty on research projects, on fellowship positions, because we're one of the universities globally with one of the biggest research outputs in the world. So it's a great opportunity for you to engage with some research that you're really passionate about. Then we also have people like John Hull. So for any of you here today who have ever studied finance, derivatives, or risk management, he's literally the guy who's written the textbooks on any of that stuff. So, you truly have the opportunity to learn from some of the best here at Rotman. And again, being a top global school nationally, we're able to attract some incredible speakers to the school every year. So every year there's over 100+ speaking events at Rotman that are open to our students, and this encompasses leading government officials, best-selling authors, leading academics. So it's a great opportunity for you to hear from some of the most influential people in the world at the time. In the background there, you see a photo of our current Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. This was about a year and a half ago now, where the New York Times had a conversation with him at Rotman. And the topic of discussion was the impact of a new president in the United States on NAFTA negotiations, a free trade agreement. So as you can imagine, that was a very interesting conversation. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for you as a student to hear from some really influential and knowledgeable people. And usually these people stick around as well to take questions. So it's a great networking opportunity as well. Now that I've talked a little bit about our location, our reputation, let's talk a little bit about what our program actually looks like. So our full-time MBA program is 20 months in length total. You'll want to think of it as 16 months of studying with a 4-month paid internship. In terms of how it's structured, we have in your first year, you're going through the core of the MBA, and you're going through a variety of different courses to build up a strong foundational knowledge into all the different areas of business and management. And then in your second year, you're going through your specializations and also your internship. So you'll see here that the internship is flexible, so you can do it in the summer term, fall term, or winter term, so it is customizable. And in your second year, you can specialize in any of these 15 different majors that you see here on the right-hand side of the screen. And you'll see here that we have lots of different majors, lots of different opportunities for you to specialize. There is no limitation on where you take majors from or anything like that. You can really mix and match or take majors from a variety of different areas. So I'm sure you'll have questions about that, but we'll take questions about that at the end. But I'll just move over to the next slide here. As an example of one of our most unique majors, we offer a major in sustainability. This was actually just taken this photo in the background was just taken a few months ago, where our Dean Tiff Macklem presented his report on mobilizing sustainable finance. We had the Minister of Finance here in Canada, Bill Morneau, and a lot of influential people within the finance industry. So this just, again, gives you an example of some of the people that you have the opportunity to rub shoulders with at Rotman and really hear from some of the leading figures in the world. Now, one of the most unique opportunities that we have at Rotman is something called the Creative Destruction Lab. So the Creative Destruction Lab was launched at Rotman in 2012. Since then, it's raised about close to $4.3 billion in equity. That number it is being updated almost every day. It's the largest technology incubator for artificial intelligence and machine learning startups, and it's an opportunity, a really unique opportunity for you as a student. So you can take this as an elective course in the second year of the program. And as part of that elective course, you're working alongside a startup or venture for the entirety of your second year. So it's a great opportunity for you to work hands-on with a venture or startup. Juliana is pretty engaged with the Creative Destruction Lab. She'll be joining me shortly, and she can talk a little bit more about her experience there. But essentially, for the entirety of your second year, you're working alongside a venture or startup. So it's a great opportunity for you to see all the different aspects of trying to scale a business, really get to know the technology industry very well. And as you can imagine, it can be a pretty dynamic learning experience, because you can be doing everything from pitching to investors to helping with a business a development plan, a strategic plan, or anything like that. So this is definitely one of the more unique opportunities that we have within our program. You also have the opportunity to further internationalize your MBA experience. So we have a lot of different international experiences available to our students. You can do a semester abroad at one of our 24 exchange partners that are located in 17 different countries. We also have global practicums where you can go to a different part of the world for about a week or 2 weeks. When you're there, you're doing things like company visits, you're connecting with our local alumni. So it's a great opportunity for you to see how business is conducted in a different cultural environment as well, because when you do those company visits, you're working on intensive projects and deliverables for those companies. So it's a great opportunity for you to get access to the international market as well. Now, most business schools sort of expect you to learn strong communication skills and emotional intelligence automatically being in an MBA program. But one thing that really makes us unique is that we're one of the only business schools in the world that actually integrates developing your soft skills into the actual curriculum itself. And that's done through something called the Self-Development Lab. You'll see a quote here by John Byrne, editor-in-chief of Poets and Quants, where he says that Rotman really has one of the most far-reaching personal development initiatives of any MBA program in the world. And the Self-Development Lab is delivered through 8 different modules in the first year of the program. And they all focus on something different, but maybe the easiest module to kind of explain, to give you an example of the deep dive on it, is it's all delivered, first of all, through one-on-one coaching, where you're alone in the room with the professors or the faculty, and they focus directly on you and really focus on developing those soft skills and communication skills that are going to be important going forward for the rest of your career. And as an example, one of the modules is the presentation module. So you'll be alone with the professor in the room. You'll be recorded giving a presentation. They'll then critique you on every aspect of your presentation style. So from like the way your hands move, the way your voice might change, to, they even have a system that reads your facial expressions. So it's a very deep dive on you as an individual, and to really help you develop those important skill sets that you'll need for the rest of your career. So this is definitely one of the big highlights for any Rotman MBA student, and I'm sure Juliana and Olawale will have a lot to say about their experience. Now, with the 2-year MBA program, you also have a lot of interesting opportunities to join one of the many clubs at Rotman. We have everything from social clubs to cultural clubs to industry clubs. Perfect example of someone who kind of took advantage of this opportunity is Tyla Flexman, who graduated from the Rotman MBA in 2016. She was, in her second year, the president of the Sports and Business Association, and they had the idea to invite the president of the Toronto Raptors, Masai Ujiri. For those of you who don't know, the Toronto Raptors are the global reigning world champions. I'm going to be saying that for as long as I can. It was an amazing experience to be in the city this summer when we won. But yeah, she invited Masai Ujiri to have a talk at the school. And then she ended up working for Masai after the program as a marketing manager in global partnerships for the organization that owns most of the sports teams here in Toronto. So that just goes to show some of the really interesting networking opportunities that you have when you are engaged with some of the many student clubs. So there's everything from the Management Consulting Association, the Finance Association, the Sustainability Association, and lots of these clubs host events with industry partners, which is a great opportunity for you to really get access to different career opportunities when you're in the program. Now, one thing we always say is that you're always going to be learning just as much from your fellow classmates as you are from the faculty and resources that you have within the program. So let's take a look at what our class actually looks like. So we're the largest MBA program in Canada, one of the most culturally diverse MBA programs in North America. The way we admit about 300 students every year into our program. If you're wondering how that's structured, is in first year, you're split into 4 sections of 70 students. So you never have more than 70 students in your class and still have the feeling of being in a small, intimate MBA program. Once you start specializing, class sizes can be anywhere from 10 to 20 students in each class, or 10 to 50, 60 students in each class, depending on the popularity. We also have the largest alumni network in Canada. So we have close to 16,000 alumni now spread across 94 different countries. And one thing to keep in mind is as a first-year student, you have the opportunity to network with second-year students through all the different clubs and social events that happen. Then as a second-year student, you have the opportunity to network with the first-year class. So that's close to about 1,000 people that you have the opportunity to really network with during your MBA experience at Rotman. And you know, these people are going to be kind of like your second family, and there's people from all over the world. Usually in any given year, we have people from 45 to 60 nationalities represented in the program. So that's definitely one of the biggest benefits too of studying at Rotman. Now, for international students who are tuning in today, one of the things to consider is once you do graduate from the Rotman MBA, you are automatically eligible for a 3-year work permit to live and stay in Canada. That applies to your spouse or partner as well. If they are coming with you, they can work in Canada while you study. We're also the #1 MBA program in Canada for employability, and typically anywhere from 90% of the class is employed within the first 6 months of graduation. So like I said, you can download an employment and salary report. I would encourage you to take a look at that, as that is a great opportunity for you to kind of get an in-depth look at some of the opportunities our students are taking up. So that was a quick overview of our program. On the last slide here, you'll see some of our application deadlines that are for our 2020 intake, which is the next intake. I'm going to pause right here and just grab our panelists who are just seated outside my office, and we'll get started with the panel.
Sales for a Silicon Valley startup. So I've been in that space for about 6 years, kind of like in the sales area and business development. And then I came here to Rotman, did my first year, and then did my internship at IBM and sales as well. And I'm going back for full-time to IBM.
Hello. So I'm a medical doctor turned investment professional. So I worked in Nigeria for 2 years as a medical doctor. Then I moved into the investment banking space, in which I worked for 7 years with banks in Nigeria. And so I did a lot in the capital market, ranging from project finance and a lot of other projects in the capital market. Over the period, 1 year and 3 months thereabout, I've been in the MBA. So during the summer, I had a part-time internship with a private equity firm that is more focused in the sustainability finance area, and so worked on project with development finance institution, and I'm open to like focus in that space of project financing or sustainability finance after my MBA. So that's how it's been for me.
Awesome, thanks guys. So Mila, if we have questions coming in through the chat box, you just let me know. I have a couple of questions here for our panelists to kind of guide the discussion, but if there are any questions that come in through the chat box, just please let us know.
Okay, we'll do in a short while, yes.
Awesome, perfect. So many of our attendees today, they're kind of going through the research project, which you guys would have been probably about 2 years ago now. So maybe something helpful for them is, could you maybe walk us through like what your research process was when thinking about like, you know, where am I going to do an MBA? And then maybe tell us why you ultimately chose Rotman.
Yeah, for sure, I can get started. So I guess I decided, or I started thinking about doing my MBA like 3 years ago. For me, it was kind of like working for a startup. You work 24/7, so it was kind of difficult to actually get started with all the preparation. But I think that the first step was actually to go to several MBA fairs in Colombia, kind of like get a sense of the different programs, to be super honest. So the founder of the startup, of course, from like the Bay Area, he was like, you should come here and you should do the MBA in the States. And I was like, yeah, but there's a lot of things happening right now in the US. So to be honest, when I actually applied to the different MBA programs, I only applied to Rotman in Canada, and the other 3 that I applied for were in the US. And I actually really liked what Rotman offers for several reasons, I would say, because one, I was thinking about more about improving my soft skills. And I think that the MBA program does a really good job offering you spaces to learn a little bit more about management, leadership. Coming from, again, from startups, I got the opportunity to be a CDL fellowship student. So since my first year, I got connected with a startup, and I've been working with them for a year and 2 months now as their marketing director, which is kind of an outlier since you normally don't work during your full-time MBA. But it was an amazing opportunity for me. It's one of my biggest passions. So, for example, the CDL was a big game changer in terms of coming to Rotman. And I would say that besides that is sort of the fact that what really stood out for me was that the full-time program offers you or connects you to people from different parts of the world. Like 50% of the students are from other parts of the world. They're not from Canada, and I think that's a great exposure and learning opportunity for you as a student.
Okay, for me, the journey of going for an MBA started like several years back. I've always wanted to be like being in business school because my initial background was more of was medicine and surgery. So I needed the best fit for me over the long term, despite the fact that I'm a CFA chartered holder. That is to have that comprehensive management experience, because when you're coming from the healthcare space, most healthcare schools don't really like train you in business and management. They just want to focus on individuals. So having that global perspective and that general business knowledge, I feel it's something I've always like aspired for. So like my wanting to be in the business school like started like 5 years ago. So since then I've been looking to go to business school, and my number one interest was initially in the United States, to go to the top schools in the United States, but it started changing when the global environment, business environment started changing, particularly for business schools. So I started considering that which other country would give me that taste of global experience in the business space and still have that accreditation. So then Canada came into space, and I was looking at, if it's Canada, which school would be the number one school for me to go to, and it was no other school other than University of Toronto and Rotman School of Management. So that was when I zeroed it down to like, okay, this is the school I want to go for, and I put all my resources together to make sure that, okay, I get into the school. And what attracted me to the school particularly is the fact that Rotman is quite strong when it comes to finance and strategy, which it happens to be one of the best in that space because of the resources you have, the professors you have, because most of the professors are not just academic professors, but people that have very high strength in research, and Rotman is one of the top schools when it comes to research globally. And apart from that, also the fact that many of them are the people that were in the business space before, so that combination of business, academic, and research is one thing I really yearn for because of my background. I believe what would make you stand out is not just having the business sense, but also having the data and the understanding of the research to back it up. So that is what made me zero it down, that as a core finance person that has an experience in non-business environment, which is healthcare, I feel I need to have that solid understanding, and that's when I zeroed it out and look at, okay, what are the things that will actually make me get into and stand out in my application. So and I applied to Rotman, happens to be the first school I applied to. I'm hoping to also apply to a few other schools in the US if Rotman doesn't really work out. But lo and behold, within a few weeks of application, I got my admission offer, and that was when I just concluded.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys. Now, one of the things I kind of talked about in my presentation was, of course, the location, because that's definitely an important part of your consideration. So, and many of the people tuning in today are either international students or have maybe never visited Toronto before. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about the city? You know, what was that transition like? And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, before coming, I was never like in Toronto. Like I visited before Montreal, for example. I lived in Montreal for about 6 months, like 6 years ago. But that was kind of a different experience. So coming here, moving to a different city, moving to a different country is always like kind of overwhelming. But Toronto, I think it's a great city. You find everything here. You can do a ton of things. I think that maybe the most challenging part for us as international students is trying to find first like some place to live. It's always difficult because we're in downtown, so everything is a little bit more like pricey. So I would say like I would motivate the people that are actually planning on coming to Toronto to come a little bit early before the program starts. It's always something super useful to have a couple of weeks to kind of like just concentrate on that. But besides that, like the fact that the city is super multicultural, again, like you have that experience to like know about other cultures, not only inside Rotman, but also outside. I mean, like being part of like such a program that has so many people, the good part of it is like you always have plans to do, you always have social things to do, birthday parties. I think that one of the best things that Rotman has given me and that Toronto has given me is a family, because like I have no one here. So when I moved, that was kind of a little bit of my concern, like I'm gonna be alone, I'm gonna feel alone, and it's gonna be hard. But no, like the fact that a lot of international students come here makes like that everyone is on the same kind of situation. So everyone is open to, okay, like actually find friends, meet people, be open. And I think that's a great opportunity to kind of like start like building strong connections and relationships with other people. So I think I kind of deviated from the question, but I guess like my point is like Toronto is a great city. I think that maybe the winter, which is happening right now, is kind of a little bit tough at the beginning, but you definitely get used to it. I would say that now in this winter, I feel so much more prepared than the last one. So it just gets better.
Yeah, for me, because before coming for the MBA, I've been someone that have really traveled wide. I've traveled to a lot of countries. But I can tell you what stands out in Toronto is very diverse. It's a multicultural country. It's more like home away from home. You are very likely to see someone, irrespective of the country you're from. You're likely to like meet somebody on the road that is from your country within latest like 1 hour if you actually stay, like, because Rotman is on Bay Street, and that is the business street of Canada. So it's a city that you would just like meet somebody that looks like you, that thinks like you, that does everything like you. So you can be short of meeting someone that you easily resonate with. So it's a country, like she mentioned, it's a country that you see all form of socials from different, if they're from the Caribbean, from Africa, you see a lot of African Afro beats coming around. So it's, Halloween, different parts. So it's just very interesting city, and I don't think you're going to miss out from any social that you're used to coming to Toronto.
Awesome. Feel free to ask your questions or interrupt us with any questions, and Mila, also feel free to interrupt us if any questions.
Yeah, I can jump in with some questions that we've had from our attendees. One of them wanted for Juliana and Wale to share more about how they wrote their spike factor essays.
So I can kind of chime in there. So when Wale and Juliana would have applied, our essay question, I believe, was a little bit different. It wasn't asking you about the spike factor essay. But maybe knowing what you know now going through the admissions process, what advice would you maybe give to people to kind of help them find their unique story or uniqueness or spike factor, as we call it here at Rotman?
Okay. Well, interestingly, I've spoken to quite a lot of people about spike factor, and I think it's very easy because every individual seems to be unique, and what I feel what would you need to put into that is what makes you a bit unique in terms of what have you done. Maybe it's not necessarily when you're maybe when you started working or maybe when you're in uni. Just look at your life in total. What are the things that really make you stand out in terms of maybe you were involved in a volunteer service and you just want to write how that made you different and how that is going to affect things that you're looking up to do, how it has set you different among a lot of people. So I think that is what talks about if it's your academics that actually make you really stand out, you want to talk about that. If it's maybe you're involved in sport, you're involved in maybe some cultural activities and volunteer service, those are the things that really make you stand out, and those are the things you can put into your spike factors.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna echo what you said. I believe that everyone has a spike factor. Like everyone has something that I'm sure makes you special, that makes you different. The other day I was talking to a girl that wants to apply, and we were talking about the fact that she's thinking like, oh, I've never had like a leadership position, like I've never been in a management position. I was like, those are two different things, right? Like being a manager doesn't mean that you're not a leader. For example, talking about talking with her about what she does and her day-to-day job, was telling me, oh, I do a project that actually impacted 300 people. It's like, that's being a leader, right? Like sometimes you miss those kind of things, but they are there. So I would motivate you to go back, think a little bit more about like, how have you impact people around you in your day-to-day work, in your personal life, like what we said, like in sports, for example. I was an athlete before, so I remember that I talked a little bit about my sports life in my essay, the fact that gave me kind of like a good management of time, discipline, gave me resilience, for example. So like, it doesn't have to be only in the professional side of the story. Think about also like your relationships, volunteer activities or sports. Like I think, again, like everybody has something that makes him or her special.
100%, yeah, and kind of speaking from the admissions perspective is people kind of tend to discount their own experiences a little bit. So it's like at the end of the day, we're really just looking to see like what are some of those unique experiences that you've had, and some of those things that really truly make you unique. So don't discount your own experiences. Everybody's story is unique. So just feel comfortable to kind of tell us a little bit more about that. Mila, any more questions coming through there?
Yeah, of course. The other question, one of the other questions that we have is what to expect during my admissions interview.
Yeah, so I can maybe kind of just start off with that. So typically our admission interviews are done over Skype or in person if we can, if you're here in Toronto, or if we also, our team travels around the world, so sometimes we can do admissions interviews in person, but usually done also over Skype if you're an international student. So the way, we generally describe it is that kind of prepare for it as you would for a job interview. It can take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes usually, where we ask you a mix of, behavioral-based questions, but also just trying to get a deeper insight on your resume and some of the things that you talked about in the application. But maybe I'll flip it to you two. Maybe let's talk a little bit more about that experience of going through the admission interview at Rotman.
Okay, so this one is a hard question because I don't remember very well what happened in my interview. But I think it goes back to your point, like Agnes, that was the person that made my interview, she was asking me a little bit more about my experience, like to go through my resume, like what did I do in my previous job, like what was my motivation to do the MBA, maybe talking a little bit like what are my plans or like the goal after the MBA, and as well like some behavioral questions for sure. But to be super honest, I don't remember them exactly, the questions, but I think it was around that. It was like, again, kind of like getting a holistic view of you as a person more than maybe centering in some specific things.
Yeah, likewise here, it's just very similar to a job interview, like Richard said. So you first of all want to know what are the things that, because you'll be told to submit your resume, and you want to be quite abreast with things that you've done, and asking you questions about like, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years, questions like that. And you also want to be quite, to also know your story. Might not be so like, so fine-tuned because you're really going to work on that when you get into the MBA, but at least having a bit of your story, how you really like, what you've done in your career space, what you did when you were in the uni and things like that. So it's more like just a normal job interview. So it's just questions on behavioral questions. What are the feeds? What are the things you're looking at? How would you benefit from the MBA?
And I think if I can add something to that, so talking to several potential people that are gonna apply, I think like a big concern is like, I don't know what I want to do after my MBA, which I think is a normal concern that we all have. And like, for example, in my case, I had that same question when I was applying. Like, I don't know if I want to go back to startups. I don't know if I want to stay in technology. I don't know if I want to go to a big company, right? So that's okay. Like, that's completely okay. So don't worry about it. Don't stress out. Just like maybe picture a plan or try to talk about what you want to learn, or maybe some of the plans of, for example, I want to explore marketing, I want to explore finance, and that's totally okay to have like several options. You don't have to actually know where you want to be in 5 years.
100%, 100%. An MBA is like a discovery process as well. You're going to go through a lot of different learning experiences. So we don't expect you to have like a totally detailed plan of everything that you want to do. So Mila, any other questions there?
Okay, on to the next question then. How helpful was the Career Center in securing internship opportunities?
Okay. Yeah, the Career Center is very helpful because one, securing the internship is not just the first thing. The first thing is the preparation, and the Career Center is really going to help the candidates, help them refine their resume, help them refine their cover letters, take them through mock interviews, and those are the first set of places that they really need to work on, and that's what they've really been doing, and they've been super helpful when it comes to that space. And also because the Career Center in Rotman has different engagement points with companies. They have the business development part that really partners with companies and get like offers posted within the portal system in Rotman. So with that, you have access to employers coming for info sessions, and with that, you have a lot of connections with people within the organization, several organizations, a lot of companies. I can't even count the number of info sessions I was really exposed to in my first year. So it was a lot. So you have a lot of exposures to a lot of companies, and that would make you have that personal relationship. So I can say of sincerity, they are super helpful in helping most people get their internship, and also because you have that personal touch, you can also have like referrals to companies that usually don't even come to Rotman for recruitment. You can have through connections with the business development, they can also refer you to those companies.
I think I agree completely. I think that Career Center is a huge resource for us as international students. I think from day one, they help you make your resume stronger because you are the expert. Like, you know what you have done, and no one is gonna like be able to express what you have done as you can do it. But I think that they help you to choose the right words to outline your resume in a way that someone, when they read it, they're like, oh wow, right? That's one thing, right? Like in paper, they help you a lot. And also like in terms of the interview, right? Like you can practice with them, kind of do like a role playing before any interview that you are doing for your internship or for your full-time. And for example, in my case, I was lucky because I got my internship in my first interview, but that's normally not the case. But for example, for that one, I did like 3 mock interviews that basically are like the role playings. And they recorded me, and I was able to see myself in the video and say like, oh my God, I'm terrible at this, at that, like. And it, actually, you get surprised when you see yourself and you're like, oh God, like this is terrible. But to the point of a lead, like I think it's a great resource that the students can always use and have next to them through the recruitment process. And any question that you have, again, like they bring a lot of companies here. There are a lot of info sessions, and like my career coach is Katie, and she has been from day one like a huge help throughout my journey in Rotman.
All right, Mila, any other questions there?
Yes, on to the next one. Is it possible to enter to MBA by studying Canada scholarships from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development?
So I can maybe kind of chime in there. So I know there are a couple of different scholarship opportunities offered through the Government of Canada to international students. We do have a link to some of those on our website. I believe for some of them, some of them don't apply to an MBA, some of them do apply to an MBA. So it's a matter of kind of just seeing with any third-party scholarship. I know, for example, like some countries will help support your MBA through scholarships that you can apply for and things like that. So with any of those types of scholarships, students I know have used various forms of like financing and scholarships that they've applied to through third-party scholarships. But then, of course, there's also scholarships that Rotman awards directly to students. So once you apply to the program, you're automatically considered for those scholarship awards. And they can range individually from as low as $5,000 to as high as $90,000, and they're all awarded based on the overall strength of your application as an applicant. Does that help answer the question to whoever asked that?
We will wait for them to chime in whether this is sufficient. Maybe I can go on with some other questions because we have like 10 minutes in. So I'm going to try to squeeze in, and everyone that has asked questions and did not receive an answer, I'm going to forward the questions to our panelists, and they will send me the answer, and I will send it to you via email. Did you apply to other schools as well when you were applying for your MBA, or was it just Rotman?
So in my case, I applied to a total of 4 schools, Rotman being the only one in Canada, the other 3 in the US. And from those 4, I was accepted to 3 of them. But after like the excitement, I think it goes back to the first question, Richard, that you asked us about like a little bit, okay, like thinking in the long term. So what would happen after I graduate? In my case, I wanted to stay. Like one of the reasons why I did my MBA was to get an exposure to another country, to the tech industry. So I was not planning to going back to Colombia. And going to the US, the chance or the risk of going back is super high. So I was like, you know what, this is not maybe a good choice right now. But besides that, I think like Rotman, Toronto, and the full-time MBA was a great choice again, to the point of like, not only because of the location and the opportunities that you have after, because that means that after your MBA, you can stay and work for 3 years more. And after you have been here for 5 years, like getting your PR is pretty easy. So that for sure is a big thing. But more than that is like the other opportunities that the program gives you. And for me, again, was kind of the CDL, the program for the startups, that was a big game changer.
Yeah, for me, my plan was I applied to Rotman as early as July. So I got my interview 31st of August 2020.